Queen Noamagbe Ewuare II is the fourth wife of Benin monarch, His Royal Majesty, Oba Ewuare II, and the Queen is also the biological sister of the Oba's fifth wife, Queen Isosa Ewuare II. On Thursday early morning night, Queen Noamagbe apparently used a proxy TikTok account named Queen Ewuare Backup and accused the Benin Traditional Council, BTC, of dishonest behavior, categorically stating, the BTC lied that Nigeria prominent social media streamer, Habib Hamzat Adelaja aka Peller, was not authorized access into the palace of the Benin monarch, where she accidentally met Peller and gave him a motherly welcome as the Queen of the Oba, an action the BTC has alleged she breached the palace protocol, hence, she risked being removed or sent packing from the palace, according to Queen Noamagbe in the apparent TikTok social media proxy account. Peller's visit to the palace is a mere cover-up, that a lot has been happening behind closed door. She supported her claim with a document that suggests the Benin Traditional Council was aware of Peller coming to the palace, and the document dated February 23, 2026 indicated that the BTC received and acknowledged the letter of Peller planned visit, but, if the BTC actually wrote back to Peller to notify him about the acceptance or rejection of his request was not stated, this, the president of Iguabasanmi movement worldwide, Asaro Culture Iamu, counted the document and said, the receipt of letter at any institution registry doesn't amount to approval. However, the moment the letter is received at our revered palace registry, it's forwarded to the private office of Oba of Benin, His Royal Majesty, Omo Noba Nedo Uku Akpolokpolo, Oba Ewuare II. Oba of Benin will then instruct the Secretary of Benin Traditional Council, BTC, to either write formally or call those seeking for approval of their letters, especially as it's relate to royal visitations. Those who lured and deceived Peller without the approval of Benin Traditional Council, BTC, are the real problem. For the avoidance of doubts, Queen Noamagbe may not be first Oba wife to be sent packing from the palace over breach of access into the monarch palace. The Oba eldest wife, Queen Irogama Ewuare II, had been sent packing from the palace simply because one of the biological children of the Oba entered the palace allegedly in a manner the Oba did not like. This was made known in a reactionary public letter issued on December 30, 2025 by Prince Ezelekai Ewuare II, the Oba's eldest son, who is believed to be the next Oba of Benin. According to Prince Ezelekai, I want to make it very clear, my mother did nothing wrong. 6 months ago, my youngest brother allegedly barged into the palace wanting to see his father. Our father wasn't happy with his approach. As a result, my mother was told to leave the palace. I would like to use this medium to plead on behalf of your senior children you wouldn't see, your second son, your third son and your second daughter, please, whatever our father said they did wrong, please forgive and forget. Time is precious, we want togetherness, not division. On the issue he had with the Oba over the establishment of the Museum of West African Art, MOA, Prince Ezelekai said some of the Oba's children only reach him through middlemen, and as such he does not have the phone number of his biological father, Oba Ewuare II, saying, what really caused the issue between my father and I was that while I was in Germany, I overheard my father say unpleasant things about me to a public figure on the phone. I got upset and raised my voice to my father. Something I've never done in my entire life. As for me, my own father intentionally chose to compose a speech and talk about his eldest son for a whole 5 minutes. To wash me publicly over material things, objects, artifacts, a museum. Obaseki, you said Obaseki co-opted your eldest son, before Prince Ezelekai issued the public statements about his father? The Oba had on November 7, 2025, during his official and ceremonial visit to the Edo State Government House in Benin City, called out his eldest son, Prince Ezelekai, in a manner that seems to suggest as if the reigning Oba of Benin Kingdom has the power to choose his successor or the power to decide of whom become the crown prince, Edaikan, and thus, Oba Ewuare II created this impression when he said during his speech at the government house that being the first male child of the Oba does not automatically make you the crown prince of Benin Kingdom and the Edaikan of Oselu. saying, "It is only when the reigning Oba send a person to be the Edicon of Oselu, that is when the person is qualified to be seen and called the Crown Prince of Benin Kingdom and the Edicon of Oselu." Apparently angered by these words, Prince Ezelekai on November 11, 2025 issued a statement of apology, apparently in an aggressive manner, demanding that the Oba can take away the titles of Crown Prince, Edicon of Oselu, Oko Nukua, Ewuare and Prince from him, but his biological name, Ezelekai, meaning river does not flow and carry away sand or wash away sand, should not be tempered with, saying, the name Ezelekai was given to him by his grandfather, and we believed the name Ezelekai probably has a more deeper meaning in line with the traditions and laws of the people of Benin Kingdom, which significantly also means leadership, government, Oba or river, may flow and change, but the people, their culture, and their traditions, the sand, remain firmly in place, in line with the foregoing. We are not aware of any aspect of the Benin traditions that gives an Oba or any human on earth the power to choose or decide who becomes the Crown Prince, Edicon or the next Oba of Benin, but, in line with Benin traditions and history, we may not be wrong to say, it is only God Almighty that has the power to choose and decide for the people of Benin Kingdom the person who is qualified to be seen and called the Crown Prince, Edicon, and finally, the Oba of Benin Kingdom. Historically, only God Almighty choose who becomes the Crown Prince, Edicon and Oba by birth and preservation of the life of such a person till when times permit him to be the Crown Prince, subsequently become the Edicon and finally the Oba of Benin Kingdom, and for the purpose of clarity, we may not be wrong to say the Benin traditions demand the eldest male child of the reigning Oba to be seen and called the Crown Prince until a time the reigning Oba is aware or expecting to join his ancestors. The reigning Oba will now notify or call the Crown Prince and send him to Oselu as the Edicon of Oselu, an institutional responsibility demanded of the reigning Oba probably by the traditions to protect the throne of Benin Kingdom. Edicon is a title of a person who acts as a proxy of the Oba of Benin while the reigning Oba is still alive. He leaves the Oselu palace and moves to the main palace of the Benin monarch to become the new Oba when the reigning Oba has finally joined his ancestors. The word proxy, according to Cambridge Online Dictionary, is someone or something that takes the place of another person or thing, or has the same meaning, purpose, etc. as the more it. For the avoidance of doubts, Crown Prince Ehaned and Eridi Awa now Oba Ewuare II was sent as Edicon of Oselu and began his move to the Oselu Palace on Saturday, March 12, 2016 while the reigning Oba Eridi Awa was still alive, and for the record, Oba Eridi Awa thereafter was announced to have joined his ancestors on Friday, April 29, 2016. Also, Crown Prince Solomon Ico Kuoba Igbi Nogo Dua Akanzua II, who later becomes Oba Eridi Awa, was sent as the Edicon of Oselu in 1978, and on June 11, 1978, the then reigning Oba of Benin Kingdom, Oba Akanzua II, was announced to have joined his ancestors. The above illustration may have clarified that the act of a reigning Oba sending someone to Oselu as the Edicon of Oselu is apparently not a power to choose or decide who to send. Rather, it is a job function the reigning Oba is expected to perform by thus sending the one already chosen by God Almighty right from birth as the Crown Prince, Edicon, to become the Edicon of Oselu, and thereafter, the person will move to become the new Oba of Benin when the reigning king becomes of blessed memory. Peller, the 20-year-old reality or real-life interactive content creator, had visited the palace on March 6, 2026 as part of his nationwide tour and was reportedly welcomed by the Queen, who also presented him with a gift. However, the Benin Traditional Council described the visit as a desecration, leading to disciplinary actions including the suspension of a chief and the detention of palace staff, while Peller was also summoned. According to the apparent proxy TikTok account of Queen Noamagbe, the Queen obviously stated in proxy thus, "Hello everyone, the issues at hand isn't just because Peller came to the palace or me gifting him, a lot has been happening behind closed doors. The Benin Traditional Council lied that Peller coming to the palace was unauthorized and I brought him to the palace, but I hope I will be able to convince you all that Peller coming to the palace was authorized. Look at the stamp on this letter, shows that it was approved by Benin Traditional Council, but they're all lying on my head. But what I want you to know is that this isn't the main problem, because there are other issues way bigger than what you all thinks. Thanks to those people who have reached out just to check on me and to make sure I'm fine. On March 16, 2026, in a press release signed and made available by Frank Irabor, the Secretary of the Benin Traditional Council, the BTC said, "The Benin Traditional Council, BTC, wishes to address the public regarding a serious breach of protocol and desecration of the sacred precincts of the palace, which occurred on Friday the 6th of March 2026. The council confirms that an individual, Habib Hamzat Adelaja, a social media influencer popularly known as Peller, gained unauthorized access to the palace premises on the said date. Mr. Adelaja and his entourage entered the palace without the requisite permission from the council, and their subsequent conduct caused significant embarrassment and a breach of the peace within the palace grounds. The Benin Traditional Council views this incident with the utmost gravity. The palace is not a public thoroughfare or a location for frivolous content creation. It is the ancient and spiritual seat of the Oba of Benin, governed by centuries of tradition, custom, and sacred protocols. The council has conducted a preliminary investigation into the circumstances that allowed this unauthorized access. Consequently, stringent disciplinary measures have been taken against palace staff and chiefs who aided this mischievous act. Specifically, a chief who was implicated in the incident has been suspended indefinitely from the palace. A staff member of the Benin Traditional Council, identified as Mr. Omuemu, has been detained by the Nigeria police force. He has been charged to court for causing a breach of the peace and abetting the unauthorized entry. Furthermore, it is with deep regret that the council confirms that a queen of the palace who was unfortunately featured in the incident is now facing serious disciplinary proceedings in accordance with Benin traditions and customs. These proceedings may inadvertently result in her removal from the palace. Following the incident, the council, utilizing the same channels within the palace that facilitated the initial entry, extended an invitation to Mr. Habib Hamzat Adelaja, Peller. He was requested to appear before a committee of chiefs tasked with investigating the matter to provide his own side of the story. Regrettably, Mr. Adelaja has failed to honor this invitation. The council is therefore using this public medium to demand that Mr. Adelaja present himself immediately to the relevant authorities within the council. His unapproved visit has caused untold distress to so many people, and as such, he must tender an unreserved written apology to the palace for his unauthorized access and the embarrassment caused. Failure to comply with this directive will leave the council with no option but to pursue legal action. The appropriate law enforcement agencies have been duly informed of this matter and are standing by to take necessary action against him. The Benin Traditional Council assures the public and the entire Benin nation that it remains the unwavering custodian of our age-old customs and traditions. While unscrupulous elements may occasionally attempt to undermine our sacred institutions, banking on the fatherly and forgiving disposition of His Royal Majesty, Omo Nobenedo, Uku Akpolokpolo, Obereware Il, CFR, they do so at their peril. The Council wishes to state unequivocally that it possesses the institutional tools to immediately correct such infractions and prevent any reoccurrence. We thank the public for their concern and support in preserving the sanctity and dignity of the Benin throne. On November 11, 2025, the believed Crown Prince of Benin Kingdom and the Edikan waiting for his time to be sent to Oselu, Prince Ezelekai Ewuare II issued a public statement via his verified Instagram account, and said thus, Domo Umugan, hope you're well. El hoped it would never get like this, especially my father addressing in-house publicly. I have apologized several times before, but it seems El need to do it again. I am sorry for how El spoke to you. I'm your son and I'm only human. You are our father, we all look up to you and love you dearly, so of course, as our king, you can take Crown Prince, Oko New Kua, Prince, Edikan of Oselu and Ewuare, but please, Laho, leave, Azelekai, for me because my grandfather gave me that name. You raised me with morals, values and integrity. As your son imperatively, one thing you can always count on is that I will tell you what others wouldn't tell you and speak my opinion on issues that others might be too worried to touch on. I'll use this medium to plead. Please handle the current situation on ground with sagacity. Our father is the most fastidious, painstaking and meticulous individual known, so I have almost faith in you. I pray for you always. Pray for good health and long life. May God and our ancestors continue to give you wisdom, guide and protect you always. The Prince on December 30th, 2025, released another statement via his verified Instagram account and stated that, over the last few weeks I've received an alarming amount of messages about the welfare of my mother. I really appreciate your concern, but rest assured she is being cared for. Before the year ends, I choose to address this simply because I wouldn't allow false narratives about why my mother isn't in the palace. I want to make it very clear, my mother did nothing wrong. 6 months ago my youngest brother allegedly barged into the palace wanting to see his father. Our father wasn't happy with his approach. As a result, my mother was told to leave the palace. Our dear father, Domo, I would like to use this medium to plead on behalf of your senior children you wouldn't see, your second son, your third son and your second daughter. Please, whatever our father said they did wrong, please forgive and forget. Time is precious. We want togetherness, not division. As for me, my own father intentionally chose to compose a speech and talk about his eldest son for a whole 5 minutes, to wash me publicly over material things, objects, artifacts, a museum, Obaseki. You said Obaseki co-opted your eldest son. Domo, our father omitted to mention the part where you were aware and gave your blessing for me to be on the Legacy Restoration Trust. It was after I got to Germany that my father then told me on the phone that he had changed his mind about me being on the board. I remember being so befuddled and shocked. There is no way on this earth I would ever be a part of something of this magnitude without getting green light from you, on God and our ancestors. I tried informing you a few times before I left to Germany, but as our father recalls, you chose to put middlemen in between our direct communication, which meant you never got my message on time. You didn't give anyone your direct number, so I couldn't pick up the phone to inform you personally beforehand. What really caused the issue between my father and I was that while I was in Germany, I overheard my father say unpleasant things about me to a public figure on the phone. I got upset and raised my voice to my father, something I've never done in my entire life. Hence why I aforementioned, I'm only human. Afterwards, I realized the mistake I made. I pleaded and apologized for 4 years straight, wrote countless remorseful letters, but yet you chose not to forgive and rather keep malice for this long. I didn't know you had this kind of mind towards your own son, your first son if I may add. Why not just call and berate, castigate me privately? After all, I said I was sorry several times. After all, no one knew about this but you and I. It was a father and son issue, that was it, something private, sensitive but infinitesimal. You've always taught us not to air our dirty laundry in public, but the teaching went out the window that day in Government House. You chose to bring our private business to the public domain, which was so sad and heartbreaking to watch. My senior sister being on stage with you made me question her intentions towards me, and that's a horrible feeling. If our father feels there was nothing wrong with what was said that day, then who am I to say or think otherwise? Domo, I'll deal with however you decide to treat me, but please don't mistreat our mother. I worry about her sometimes. She's not as young as she used to be. My mother has done nothing wrong. She has stood by you for years, raised your children with you for years. She's mother to all, just as you are father and king to all. Please, she doesn't deserve this treatment. The year is coming to an end. I'm on my knees. Let our mother back into her home. To our leaders, as we enter 2026, I pray for unity, togetherness, progress, development and peace. Positive projection of Edo should be priority.
Our long-awaited visit also coincides with time that the long controversial museum called MOA announced plans for its opening. When I first heard this name, it was MOA. Now MOA. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are therefore constrained to throw light on the lingering controversy surrounding the museum called Museum of West African Art, which MOA was originally conceived as Benin Royal Museum. Did you all know that? Originally, before my coronation in 2016, my grandfather, Oba Kenzwa II, my father, Oba Erediawa, and I, by the grace of God now, Oba Ewari II, have been known to be canvassing for the return of our looted artifacts by the British in 1897. Some were returned by the British government during my grandfather's reign, and my grandfather sang a song and danced to it in appreciation and happiness. So which in honor of my grandpa, I also now do the same song and dance whenever an artifact is returned. As if it is a kind of mysterious way to summon the return of other artifacts out there to come home. That song. Yes, home, to be housed in the proposed Benin Royal Museum. Not anywhere else. Some were returned during my father's reign. This was well celebrated during the former governor's comrade Oshomoli's administration, who joined the palace to receive the artifacts. As a diplomat, I carried on the struggle of my fathers for the return of the artifacts to the palace, to far corners of the globe, because I was fortunate to serve my country in several countries. I presented my letters of credence to the King of Sweden, King of Norway, and Queen of Denmark, and President of Finland, President of Angola, President of Rome, and Albania, Republic of Albania. I invited Godwin Obaseki shortly after he was sworn in 2017. I intimated him of how much my father and I had been fighting for the return of the stolen artifacts. I solicited for his collaboration, being the new governor of the state and I the new Oba on the throne. He promptly agreed to support this effort. On my second coronation anniversary, he was called to make some remarks and surprised everyone when he informed us that he had been meeting with the Benin Dialogue Group, some museums, and international donors who were already cooperating with him for the setting up of the Benin Royal Museum, and that he has invited them to Benin for the next meeting. He then said he couldn't see any better coronation anniversary gift he could give to me than that. Everyone applauded him, but somehow I was not so excited. I had a bad feeling about it. Instead of me to be jumping for joy, I had a bad feeling about it, as if something was wrong or going to go wrong. I'm sure my ancestors were prompting me not to believe the story. Then there was silence. After that, silence from Governor Obaseki. COVID-19 came in and complicated issues. During the period of COVID-19, I believe the evil, the plan, the bad plan, evil plan was also being perfected. Perhaps that was the period they now found out that a lot of money is coming with the artifacts to the palace, and then they decided to divert it to their own pockets. Suddenly, I saw that they co-opted my eldest son into their conspiracy because they felt they would see him as the Crown Prince of Benin. If they see him as the Crown Prince of Benin, that would prove that they are collaborating with the palace. And if they dragged him along with them, they would have succeeded in convincing international donors, particularly Germany, that they are collaborating with the palace. My dear son said that they constituted the Legacy Restoration Trust, and they have given him a board seat. I didn't send him there. He looked excited, of course. Poor child. He didn't understand the implications of what he was getting himself into, because he didn't remember or didn't care to remember that I've been teaching what I've been teaching him about people. For avoidance of doubt, the German government et al. And others, who did not even understand our traditions and did not care to come to the source to find out for reasons best known to them, perhaps because they were also having interests of their own in the artifacts. They would have found out that the eldest son of the Oba of Benin is not automatically the Crown Prince of Benin, even though our system of succession is based on the principle of primogeniture, until his father, the reigning Oba, pronounced him so and direct him to Uselu to preside over Uselu as the Dakin of Uselu. Or until then, he is regarded as just the first prince or senior prince in Benin. They will say Oko no Hua. So were we all, and my father. I was also involved in a ceremony in the palace that formally sent me to Uselu. With Comrade Oshomole was there at the time, was the governor, and a lot of crowd trekked, as we have to do it, in line with tradition. Trekked all the way to Uselu. Took residence before technically, officially, I became the Crown Prince, became the Edake of Uselu. Anything short of that is window dressing and cosmetic. They decided to drag this, my eldest son that I loved, into a conspiracy against his own heritage. And he was thanking them for it. He also let himself be dragged into the conspiracy for obvious reasons, because he refused to listen to the counsel of his father, the king, that thought has been nurturing him since birth. What I know. Your Excellency, Mr. Governor, 2 days ago, my people protested against the purported opening of the so-called MOA. It will be recalled that during the time of your predecessor in office, I suggested to him that the Edo State government should support the Oba of Benin in the pursuit of the return of the artifacts and the building of the Benin Royal Museum. This was duly agreed to by the erstwhile Governor Godwin Obaseki in conjunction with the National Commission for Museums and Monuments. I gave several referral letters to the then DG, Director General Abbas Tijani, for him to be able to negotiate with different museums in Europe and America. Surprisingly, I was no longer put in the picture of the pursuit of these artifacts and the support for the building of the Benin Royal Museum. Several agreements were signed by the then Director General of the NCMM on behalf of the Oba of Benin, which I never saw up to now. Tijani Abbas and Godwin Obaseki conspired against the palace of the Oba of Benin and started building what they called a Dome Museum of West Africa as a MOA. I was never put in the picture anymore. It was very sad to me. It was later made known that the finance for the MOA, which they were building, was actually gotten from foreign donors who were made to believe that the Benin artifacts that will be returned will be housed in the Benin Royal Museum. The structure that is standing there was actually supported by foreign donors and the goodwill of the Oba of Benin to build a royal museum, the Benin Royal Museum. The so-called MOA is not a state government, it's not a state government project. It is a project that is meant to house Benin bronzes in the museum known as the Benin Royal Museum. I have to keep on re-emphasizing this. I am therefore in support of my people who came out a few days ago to protest against MOA opening of any sort. I therefore urge the state government to ensure that the MOA structure, which is under probe by the Edo State House of Assembly, is fully investigated and the source of finance and ownership made known. Your Excellency, for the information of the general public, the foreign donors are actually seeing this MOA structure as Benin Royal Museum. And I urge Your Excellency to let it be so. Your Excellency, distinguished Governor of Edo State, please, this was like my appeal to President Buhari in his private party that he had. I appealed to him with the former Minister of Lai Mohammed, Minister of Arts and Culture, President, and all the movers and shakers of the country were present. And I appealed to him, Mr. President, you have done so much to support us in Edo State, particularly the royal family, the royal court of Benin. As much as you have done, there are some people still scheming to reloot our artifacts. Please, Mr. President, don't let them reloot our artifacts. I'm appealing to His Excellency too. Please stop the opening of the MOA because it is fraught with greed, deceit, and mischief, and lack of transparency. I cannot end this address without expressing deep appreciation to the former President Muhammad Buhari, GCFR, who is late now, very good friend of the family of Edo State, who understood completely the need to recognize and support the ownership of the bronzes, of the Benin bronzes, and also thank his successor, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, who incidentally is my in-law. I don't know if you are aware of that, Mr. Governor. He's my in-law. And as he openly said, because he has openly said so, that's why I'm openly saying so now. As he openly said when he came to the palace, that he's not a stranger to this palace for supporting and pledging to build the Benin Royal Museum. And of course, Akpakomiza, who God and our ancestors brought to rescue otherwise rather toxic situation in the state in general and in Benin in particular. Most of all, as I said at the beginning, God is the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. All glory be to God. Long live Edo State government, long live Federal Republic of Nigeria, and God bless you all. I therefore stand before you today as the 40th Oba of Benin. A direct descendant of Oromiya, the son of Oduduwa, whom the Benin people of that era knew as a Kaladira, their self-exiled prince, who later became ruler in Ile-Ife. The Benin people recognize Oduduwa and his origin, but it is not our place to force this recognition on others outside our boundaries. The history of the world is a shared one, and there will certainly be unexpected connections in future. This is thus a time for unity and not divisiveness, a time for mutual respect.
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.
Armed Forces of Nigeria, AFN, has stated that its men resisted and pushed back a group of Islamic State of West Africa Province, ISWAP fighters at Malam Fatori area in the Abadam local government area of Borno State early morning on Wednesday, after the ISWAP fighters launched a simultaneous 5 multiple and separate offensive attacks against the troops of the Joint Task Force, Northeast Operation Hadankai. The Nigeria Army supported its press release with a video of dead bodies of the suspected terrorists, some of whom, according to the military authority, were well-known ISWAP commanders who led other terrorists to carry out the attacks. Lieutenant Sani Uba, the media information officer, Joint Task Force, Northeast Operation Hadankai, in a press release issued a few minutes ago, noted that Niger Republic Air Force supported in the killing of the terrorists and other offensive military actions that finally forced other surviving terrorists to withdraw and flee in disarray. Accordingly, the press release reads verbatim thus: troops of the Joint Task Force, Northeast Operation Hadankai, OPHK, in the early hours of Wednesday successfully repelled a coordinated and simultaneous 5-pronged terrorist attack on own positions at Malam Fatori in Sector 3. The terrorists, who advanced in large numbers on foot and deployed armed drones in a desperate bid to breach the defenses of locations of troops, particularly along the frontage of Bravo Company from the Duguri General area, were met with overwhelming resistance. Having maintained full situational awareness of the battle space, troops had anticipated the attack and deliberately prepared an offensive-defensive battle designed to decisively defeat and annihilate the assault elements. Through disciplined fire control, coordinated maneuver and superior tactical execution, the attackers were engaged, disrupted and routed in disarray, with no fewer than 80 terrorists neutralized during the engagement. Additionally, the firefight was further reinforced by precision of close air support from the air component of Operation Haddon Kai, complemented by rapid strike passes from allied Nigerian air assets, which compounded the pressure on the fleeing insurgents. Exploitation of the engagement area led to the recovery of a substantial cache of weapons, ammunition and combat enablers, including 52 AK-47 rifles, 8 PKT machine guns, 7 RPG tubes, 5 general-purpose machine guns, GPMGs, over 3,000 rounds of assorted 7.62mm ammunition, 21 RPG bombs, 9 locally fabricated IEDs, multiple magazines, communication radios and components of armed drones deployed by the terrorists. Despite the scale and intensity of the assault, own troops recorded minimal casualties, with 4 soldiers wounded in action and promptly stabilized, while follow-on battle damage assessment of air interdictions remains ongoing. Significantly, the operation resulted in the neutralization of 3 high-profile terrorist commanders, namely Malam Abdulrahman Gobara, Malam Bayuram and Abu Ayuba, who were key figures in coordinating and leading the failed assault. Furthermore, several other identified fighters were eliminated during the engagement, including Zarqawi, Barbunu, Rawa Fanami, Abu Asuwati, Yulama Mil, Abu Aisha, Sulaimana, Abu Rijal, Abu Ali, Abu Ghana Karia and Amodu Hirasama. The elimination of these commanders and fighters represents a severe disruption to the terrorist command structure and operational capability within the Axis. This decisive victory represents a major operational setback for the terrorist network and further underscores the growing combat effectiveness, resilience and tactical superiority of Operation Haddon Kai forces across the theater. The failed attack clearly contradicts recent misleading propaganda and false narratives suggesting that troops are overwhelmed or experiencing setbacks. On the contrary, troops remain firmly in control of all locations, maintaining dominance through sustained offensive operations, effective joint force integration and high morale. Operation Haddon Kai reassures the general public that the security situation in Malam Fatori and its environs remains firmly under control, while urging citizens to remain vigilant and disregard unverified reports intended to undermine ongoing military operations. The military high command commended the troops for their gallantry and resilience, urging them to sustain the operational tempo. In an earlier press release, the Nigeria military initially said 60 ISWAP terrorists were killed, but in the newest press release issued a few minutes ago, the military corrected the figure to be 80 casualties suffered by the terrorists. The earlier press release reads in full below: "The Nigerian army has once again demonstrated its unwavering resolve to defeat terrorism, successfully repelling a coordinated night attack by insurgents in Malam Fatori, a Badam local government area of Borno State. The attack, which occurred in the early hours of Wednesday the 18th of March 2026 at about 12:50 a.m., saw terrorists suspected to be members of Boko Haram, ISWAP, advancing from the Duguri general area on foot, supported by multiple armed drones, in a bid to breach the 68th Battalion main defensive area. However, their movement was swiftly detected by vigilant troops who responded with overwhelming firepower. In a well-coordinated operation, troops in synergy with supporting air components engaged the attackers decisively, neutralizing over 60 terrorist fighters, including some notorious commanders. The intense firefight forced the remaining insurgents into a disorganized retreat towards the Arege general area. Troops have since commenced exploitation operations to pursue and eliminate the fleeing terrorists, while intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance platforms are being deployed to dominate the adversary's withdrawal routes and prevent regrouping. The Nigerian army remains resolute and committed to sustaining offensive operations against terrorist elements, while reassuring law-abiding citizens of its dedication to safeguarding lives and property across the country.
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.
Nigeria military authority has placed the citizens and residents in the West Africa country on a high alert over increased security threats in the country, following apparent multiple suicide bombings on Monday in the northeastern state of Borno State, wherein the Nigeria police force confirmed 23 people were killed and 108 other persons sustained injuries when bombs exploded almost at the same time at 3 different locations in Maiduguri, the state capital, at locations which included the post office area, Monday market access and the entrance to the University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital, UMTH during the period of iftar, breaking of fast, hours after the Borno State Command of the Nigeria Police Force had reported earlier on Monday that suspected Boko Haram, ISWAP terrorists made an attempt to infiltrate into the state capital with sporadic gunshots and explosions at Ajulari Cross, Kofa area of outskirt of Maiduguri Metropolitan Council, MMC, and Damboa Maiduguri Road in Damboa local government area. And the latest activities and official reports indicated that the ISWAP and Boko Haram terrorists may have advanced and taken some positions closer to the state capital. This, the Nigeria Police Force said, the Borno State Joint Security Operatives has begun aggressive patrols within the Maiduguri Metropolitan Council and appealed to residents to alert the security agency for emergency response with contact numbers 08068075581 or 08023473293. Lieutenant Colonel Sani Uba, the Media Information Officer of Joint Task Force in the Northeast Operation Haddon Kai in a press release on Monday, said, the Headquarters Joint Task Force Northeast Operation Haddon Kai, OPHK, wishes to inform the general public of suicide bomb explosions that occurred at about 7:05 p.m. on Monday the 16th of March 2026, in Maiduguri Metropolitan Council, MMC. The explosions were carried out by suspected Boko Haram terrorist suicide bombers who detonated improvised explosive devices at 3 different locations within the city, namely the post office area, Monday market access and the entrance to the University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital, UMTH, during the period of iftar, breaking of fast. The cowardly attacks targeted crowded public areas in an attempt by the terrorists to inflict mass casualties and create panic within the metropolis. Troops of Operation Haddon Kai, in conjunction with the Nigeria Police Explosive Ordnance Disposal, EOD, team and other sister security agencies, responded swiftly to the incident and immediately secured and cordoned off the affected locations to prevent further harm. Emergency response teams, including personnel from the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, and other medical service providers, promptly evacuated casualties to the General Hospital, Specialist Hospital and the University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital for urgent medical attention. Medical teams are currently attending to injured victims at various health facilities across the city, while emergency responders continue rescue and evacuation efforts at the affected locations. Preliminary information further indicates that the terrorists may have deployed multiple suicide bombers into Maiduguri with the intention of carrying out coordinated suicide bombings at crowded locations. Security forces have therefore intensified surveillance, patrols and counter-wide measures across the metropolis to track down any remaining suspects and prevent further attacks. Members of the public are therefore urged to remain calm but vigilant, avoid crowded areas where possible and promptly report any suspicious persons, unattended items or unusual activities to the nearest security agency. Operation Haddon Kai commiserates with the families of the victims and assures the public that troops and all security agencies remain fully committed to safeguarding lives and property while relentlessly pursuing terrorist elements responsible for these heinous acts. State-owned media, NTA, in a news post published on its social media platforms on Tuesday, reported that the Headquarters Joint Task Force Northeast Operation Haddon Kai has warned the public, especially those across the Northeast, to beware of increased security threat as recent developments indicate an increased threats of suicide bombing attacks by Boko Haram, ISWAP terrorist elements during the final days of Ramadan. A statement by the Media Information Officer, Headquarters Joint Task Force, Northeast, Operation Hadankai, Lieutenant Colonel Sani Uba says, the unfortunate incidents recorded in Maiduguri on Monday evening, around Monday Market, Post Office, and the entrance of the University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital, leading to casualties, further highlight the continued intent of terrorist elements to target densely populated civilian locations in order to create panic and gain propaganda advantage. It adds, historical patterns show that terrorist groups often intensify their activities during significant religious periods, particularly around the 27th and 29th days of Ramadan, when places of worship, markets, motor parks, and other public gathering areas experience increased inhuman traffic. Accordingly, to forestall repeat occurrences, members of the public across the Northeast region have been strongly advised to remain security conscious, vigilant, and observant of their surroundings, particularly in crowded locations such as mosques, prayer grounds, markets, shopping areas, bus terminals, hospitals, and major road junctions. Worshippers attending night prayers, Tarawih and Tahajjud and other religious gatherings are encouraged to exercise caution and cooperate with security personnel conducting screening and access control procedures. The public is advised to observe the following precautionary measures. Remain alert to suspicious persons or unusual movement, behavior, particularly individuals loitering around crowded areas or attempting to avoid security checks. Report unattended bags, parcels, or suspicious objects immediately to the nearest security personnel. Avoid overcrowded areas whenever possible and maintain situational awareness when attending places of worship, markets, or public events. Cooperate fully with security agencies during stop and search operations, security screening, and other safety procedures. Parents and guardians are urged to be mindful of the movement of their children, especially during evening hours and night prayers. Community, opinion leaders, religious authorities, market associations, and transport unions are also encouraged to support ongoing security efforts by sensitizing members of their communities and promptly reporting any suspicious activities. Security agencies across the region have already heightened operational readiness and increased surveillance, patrols, and protective measures around critical locations and population centers. These measures are aimed at preventing further terrorist attacks and ensuring that citizens can observe the remaining days of Ramadan and the forthcoming Eid celebrations in peace and safety. The statement enjoined the public that cooperation remains a critical component of counter-terrorism efforts. Timely information from vigilant citizens has helped security forces prevent attacks and apprehend terrorist collaborators. Members of the public are therefore urged to remain calm but vigilant and to promptly report any suspicious activity to the nearest security formation or through established emergency channels. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu said, "The recent news from Maiduguri, Borno State, is profoundly upsetting. I mourn those who lost their lives, sympathize with the injured and stand in solidarity with the people of Borno during this challenging time. I want to make it categorically clear that these acts of terror are the final desperate and frantic attempts by criminals and terrorist elements trying to instill and spread fear, as they're under constant pressure from our brave armed forces and security agencies operating in various theaters. We will continue to intensify our efforts against all criminal elements, wherever they may be. I must commend the courage and fighting spirit of our patriotic troops who successfully repelled the coordinated attacks by these terrorists on military positions in the state. The Monday attacks were desperate acts of the evil-minded terrorist groups. Our gallant military and civilian task forces will curtail and put them down." Just last weekend, during a security meeting with leaders of security and intelligence agencies, I approved additional equipment and operational support to enhance their capabilities. This effort is already in progress. Additionally, I have directed security chiefs to move to Maiduguri to take charge of the situation. I have also directed the emergency agencies to provide proper care for the injured. There is no place in Nigeria where terrorists will find safety. We will locate them, confront them, and completely defeat them. Nigeria will not succumb to fear. The Borno State Command of the Nigeria Police Force stated in a statement that, following the devastating suspected suicide IED explosions that occurred at about 19:24 hours on the 16th of March 2026, at Maiduguri Monday Market, University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital, UMTH Gate, and Post Office Flyover Area, Maiduguri, preliminary investigation reveals that the incidents were carried out by suspected suicide bombers. Regrettably, a total of 23 persons lost their lives, while 108 others sustained varying degrees of injuries. Following the incidents, a combined team of police tactical units, the military, and other joint security operatives were swiftly deployed to the affected areas. The scenes were immediately secured, cordoned off, and subjected to thorough sweep operations by Police Explosive Ordnance Disposal (EOD) Unit Base 13 Maiduguri to rule out the presence of any additional threats. The Commissioner of Police, CP Naziru Abdulmajid, visited the affected locations to conduct an on-the-spot assessment of the situation and to evaluate ongoing response efforts. He commiserated with victims and their families, while assuring the public of the command's unwavering commitment to safeguarding lives and property. Victims were promptly evacuated by emergency responders, including the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, and the State Emergency Management Agency, SEMA, to medical facilities where they are currently receiving treatment. Borno State Police Command wishes to state that normalcy has been fully restored in the affected areas. Meanwhile, joint security operatives have heightened security presence and surveillance across Maiduguri and its environs to prevent any further occurrences. Investigations are ongoing to further ascertain the circumstances surrounding the incidents and to bring perpetrators to justice. The Borno State Police Command urges members of the public to remain calm, vigilant, and to promptly report any suspicious movements or objects to the nearest security agency, ASP Nahum Kenneth Dasso, the Borno State Police Command Public Relations Officer stated this in a press release on Monday. In an earlier press release issued on Monday, the Police Public Relations Officer of Borno State Command, ASP Nahum Kenneth Dasso said, following widespread reports of sporadic gunshots and explosions which raised public concern and attracted attention, the Borno State Police Command wishes to clarify that the incidents were a result of attempted infiltrations by suspected Boko Haram, ISWAP terrorists at Ajulari Cross, Kofa area of outskirt of Maiduguri Metropolitan Council, MMC, and Damboa Maiduguri Road, Damboa Local Government Area. The incidents occurred on the 16th of March 2026 at about 0000 hours in Ajulari Cross, Kofa, MMC, and 1 o'clock hours along the Damboa Maiduguri Road axis in Damboa Local Government Area, when suspected terrorists attempted to infiltrate the areas. In a swift and coordinated response, joint security operatives who were already on heightened alert engaged the insurgents and successfully repelled the attacks, forcing the terrorists to retreat. During the operations, no casualties were recorded among security personnel or civilians. However, the insurgents are believed to have suffered casualties and injuries, though the exact figures are yet to be confirmed. The Commissioner of Police, Borno State Command, reassures residents of the command's continued commitment to safeguarding lives and property and maintaining peace across the state. He further urges members of the public to remain vigilant, avoid spreading unverified information, and continue to support security agencies with timely and credible intelligence. Further developments will be communicated as investigations and security operations continue.
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.
There may be no doubt that Iran is apparently giving the United States, US a tougher time at the Strait of Hormuz, holding strong that none of its enemies and their allies will sail their ship through the Strait of Hormuz, an action that has since made the US President, Donald Trump, to make contradictory statements after the US Army obviously failed in its intimidating military campaign and destruction of the Iran naval base, airport control tower, helicopter hangars, naval mine storage, missile bunkers and anti-aircraft and ballistic missiles defense system, with a threat to destroy the oil lifeline of Iran at the Karg Island if Iran continued to block ships from sailing through the Strait of Hormuz. But yet, as at the time of filing in this report today, Iran remains deviant to US threat, with close watchers saying, Iran may not fight a traditional normal naval war with the US Marines who are currently on a high speed traveling from their base in Japan to the Strait of Hormuz, of which, over 2,500 of the US Marines and sailors have been redeployed and apparently drawn from the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, MEU, an elite rapid response force, and the Marines are traveling aboard an amphibious-ready group, ARG led by the assault ship USS Tripoli, LHA-7, an assault ship that can function as a lightning carrier, carrying F-35B stealth fighters and MV-22 Osprey transport aircraft, and the assigned Marines are expected to arrive the Strait of Hormuz in a week or less than 2 weeks' time. But, currently, close watchers said, Iran is using deviant tactics like GPS jamming, swarming drones, and underwater mines to keep the US Navy off balance, an action that may be the reason the US President, Donald Trump, initially called on the international communities to help form an international naval coalition to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, but some European countries like Germany, United Kingdom, France, Greece, Italy, and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, refused, with some heads of the European countries saying, "The war is not our war. Germany will not participate in any military activity in the Strait. Any plan to reopen the Strait won't be a NATO mission, and that the UK will not be drawn into a wider war. No sending France warships to the region until the security situation stabilizes. Italy's current naval missions would not be extended to the Strait. No Greece military engagement in the waterway." Following this, President Donald Trump, in a nationwide media chat on Monday, said, "US don't need them. We don't need anybody. We are the strongest nation in the world. We have the strongest military by far in the world. We don't need them, but, it is interesting, in some cases, not because we need them, because I want to find out how they react. We have been protecting these countries for years with NATO, because NATO is us. You can ask Putin, Russia President, Vladimir Putin. Putin fears us. He doesn't fear them. He has no fear of Europe whatsoever." Meanwhile, Iran's stronghold on the Strait of Hormuz has made energy prices to go higher. Brent crude has surged to over $105 per barrel, a 40% increase since the start of the war on February 28, 2026. QatarEnergy has declared force majeure on LNG shipments after attacks on its facilities, removing 20% of the global LNG supply from the market overnight. Most shipping, according to local media, has diverted to the Cape of Good Hope, adding 10 to 14 days to journey times and significantly increasing freight costs, with Cape Chamber of Commerce and Industry confirming that the Port of Cape Town in South Africa recorded a 112% increase in diverted vessels by mid-March 2026. The US military, CENTCOM, during the preceding week issued a public announcement, asking civilians to leave ports around the Strait of Hormuz, saying, "The Iranian regime is using civilian ports along the Strait of Hormuz to conduct military operations that threaten international shipping." As of today, March 17, 2026, multiple reports indicated that the Strait of Hormuz is in a state of de facto closure and extreme military tension. Commercial traffic has collapsed from a pre-war average of 138 vessels per day to just 3 vessels per day as of March 16, according to local observers. Major carriers like Maersk, MSC, and Hapag-Lloyd are said to have suspended all transits. Iran has officially stated the strait is open, but effectively barred to the US, Israel, and their allies. Some non-Western vessels, such as Indian and Pakistani tankers, have been granted rare exceptions to pass, often by hugging the Iranian coastline or broadcasting China crew on their transponders to signal neutrality. It was gathered that more than 3,200 ships are currently trapped or waiting west of the strait as companies assess the risk of missile and drone attacks. Mariner Traffic on March 4, 2026 had tweeted that tanker traffic through Strait of Hormuz down by 90%. Analysis of vessel activity indicates tanker transits are now around 90% lower than last week. Matt Wright, principal freight analyst at Peller, explains, unlike several other vessel segments where movements have largely ceased, some tankers are still traveling east and west through the strait, with a number of voyages occurring under automatic identification system (AIS) blackouts. During the preceding week, Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, vowed to keep blocking the Strait of Hormuz, a key shipping channel, in a statement read by a presenter on state TV. On March 14, 2026, President Trump urged allies, including the UK, China, France, Japan, and South Korea, to send warships to the region to help reopen the strait and secure global energy routes, but the European countries refused, and the US president said the United States does not need them. He was only wanting to see their reactions by asking for international naval coalition help. Mariner traffic on Monday reported that a first non-Iranian cargo transits Strait of Hormuz with ash on. Accordingly, the Mariner traffic stated that the Aframax tanker Karachi, carrying Abu Dhabi's Das crude, has become the first non-Iranian cargo to transit the choke point while broadcasting its ash signal, suggesting that select shipments may be receiving negotiated safe passage. According to Mariner traffic data, the 237-meter crude oil tanker entered the Iranian exclusive economic zone on the 15th of March at 11:33 Coordinated Universal Time and crossed the Strait of Hormuz at 14:43 Coordinated Universal Time. The vessel is currently sailing in the Gulf of Oman at around 9.6 knots, having successfully passed through the strait with ash active. The transit follows weeks of significantly reduced traffic through the strategic waterway, with more than 20 long-range tankers reported to have exited the Gulf. In numbers of efforts to make the Strait of Hormuz open, President Donald Trump during the preceding week stated via his Truth social media that, moments ago, at my direction, the United States Central Command executed one of the most powerful bombing raids in the history of the Middle East, and totally obliterated every military target in Iran's crown jewel, Karg Island. Our weapons are the most powerful and sophisticated that the world has ever known, but, for reasons of decency, I have chosen not to wipe out the oil infrastructure on the island. However, should Iran, or anyone else, do anything to interfere with the free and safe passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, I will immediately reconsider this decision. During my first term, and currently, I rebuilt our military into the most lethal, powerful, and effective force, by far, anywhere in the world. Iran has no ability to defend anything that we want to attack. There is nothing they can do about it. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, nor will it have the ability to threaten the United States of America, the Middle East, or, for that matter, the world. Iran's military, and all others involved with this terrorist regime, would be wise to lay down their arms, and save what's left of their country, which isn't much. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Iran has continued to retaliate US attacks on its soil, and Iran's Khatam al-Anbiya central headquarters has also urged residents in the United Arab Emirates to evacuate areas located near ports, docks and facilities hosting the United States military presence. The advisory, issued by the Iranian military command, warned that civilians living around strategic maritime and military locations should move away from such areas as tensions continue to rise in the region, according to Al Jazeera news media. Multiple reports indicated that more cargo ships have been attacked in the Gulf, apparently by Iran. 2 tankers were hit near Iraq, while a container ship was struck near the UAE. Iranian state media says Iranian forces were behind at least one strike. US CENTCOM, in a press release issued on March 11, 2026 with the title, "Civilians Warned to Avoid Ports Used by Iranian Forces," stated that US Central Command, CENTCOM, is issuing a warning to civilians that the Iranian regime is using civilian ports along the Strait of Hormuz to conduct military operations that threaten international shipping. This dangerous action risks the lives of innocent people. Civilian ports used for military purposes lose protected status and become legitimate military targets under international law. CENTCOM urges civilians in Iran to immediately avoid all port facilities where Iranian naval forces are operating. Iranian dockworkers, administrative personnel, and commercial vessel crews should avoid Iranian naval vessels and military equipment. Iranian naval forces have positioned military vessels and equipment within civilian ports serving commercial maritime traffic. Although the U.S. military also cannot guarantee civilian safety in or near facilities used by the Iranian regime for military purposes, American forces will continue taking every feasible precaution to minimize harm to civilians.
We don't need anybody. We're the strongest nation in the world. We have the strongest military by far in the world. We don't need them. But it's interesting. I'm almost doing it in some cases, not because we need them, but because I want to find out how they react. Because I've been saying for years that if we ever did need them, they won't be there. Not all of them, but they won't be there. I was very surprised with the United Kingdom, because the United Kingdom, 2 weeks ago, I said, why don't you send some ships over? And he really didn't want to do it. I said, you don't want to do it. We've been with you. You're our oldest ally. And we spend a lot of money on, NATO and all of these things to protect you. I mean, we're protecting them. We're working with them on Ukraine. Ukraine's thousands of miles away, separated by a vast ocean. We don't have to do that, but we did it. Well, Biden did it. I mean, I have to be honest with you. Biden got taken to the cleaners. But we worked with them in Ukraine. We don't need to work with them in Ukraine. And then they tell us that we have a mine ship around, and they don't want to do it. I think it's terrible. No, I was very surprised. I told him, we requested 2 aircraft carriers, which they had, and he didn't really want to do it. And then right after the war essentially ended, meaning they were obliterated, he said, I would like to send the aircraft carriers. I said, I don't need them after the war is ended and won. I need it before the war. So I was very upset not upset, I was not happy with the UK. I think they'll be involved, yeah, maybe. But they should be involved enthusiastically. We've been protecting these countries for years with NATO, because NATO is us. You can ask Putin. Putin fears us. He has no fear of Europe whatsoever.
Radio, bringing you the news in a more digital way.
There may be no doubt that the year 2026 may not be a year of good record for some men and women of the armed forces of Nigeria. AFN, as multiple reports and official statements have confirmed that some numbers of Nigeria soldiers have been killed by Islamic State of West Africa Province, ISWAP, since the beginning of this year. Thus, the multiple reports suggest more than 180 Nigeria soldiers may have been killed in just 73 days into this new year 2026, which further indicated that an average of 2 to 3 soldiers are being killed daily in Nigeria by the ISWAP terrorists, who appeared to have increased the daily offensive attacks on Nigeria soldiers since the US-Israel joint war against Iran began on February 28, 2026. Although some close watchers accused the Nigeria military of always downplaying or reporting a very lower numbers of troops casualties, but the Nigeria Minister of Defense, General Christopher Musa, stated and confirmed during the week after security chiefs held a meeting with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu at the presidential villa in Abuja that a lot of Nigeria soldiers has been lost. But he insisted that, contrary to some reports by the media, the terrorists and bandits are taking more casualties, specifically stating, their commanders are being killed every day, we are sure of victory. And some reports also suggest that the ISWAP terrorists are increasingly using armed drones for asymmetric warfare and high-end tech like night vision in recent attacks on military bases in Nigeria, with some foreigners joining the Nigeria ISWAP fighters to launch a Ramadan campaign that saw ISWAP overrunning some military bases in Konduga, Mainik, Jacana, and Marte areas of Borno State, with local media reports stating approximately 40 soldiers were killed, while ISWAP in a press release claimed to have killed 16 in the initial assault and another 20 in a subsequent suicide bombing. On March 4, 2026, at least 14 soldiers were reportedly killed during attacks on military bases in Ngosh and other parts of Borno State. Between February 15 and 18, 2026, multiple reports confirmed 8 soldiers were killed and 23 injured at a base in Kroskawa in the Kakawa local government area of Borno State. Another 6 soldiers were reportedly killed in Bu local government area. Earlier in January 2026, at least 20 soldiers were killed in an attack on a remote base in Malam Fatori, and 8 others were killed in a separate ambush earlier in the month. This, former Nigeria presidential candidate in the last concluded general elections in the West Africa country, Peter Obi, in a worded statement during the week, said, "Our nation is clearly under siege, and the scale of insecurity is becoming unbearable, spreading widely all over the country." This week alone in Borno State's Ngosh community, terrorists overpowered soldiers, killing them and several citizens, while abducting more than 100 women and children, yet our leaders are silent. Nigerian Army in press release signed and made available on March 14, 2026 by Lieutenant Colonel Sani Uba, the Media Information Officer of Joint Task Force in the Northeast, code-named Operation Haddon-Kai, stated that the ISWAP terrorists even made an attempt to kill some Nigeria soldiers today at Bitter community in Gwoza local government area of Borno State, but they were resisted. According to the Army press release, troops of the Joint Task Force, Northeast Operation Haddon-Kai, OPHK, have once again demonstrated another superior combat readiness and tactical dominance by successfully thwarted a terrorist infiltration attempt at Bitter in Sector 1. The failed attack occurred when ISWAP terrorists, in a desperate bid to regain the initiative after recent battlefield setbacks, attempted to infiltrate the troops' location. Unknown to the terrorists, vigilant OPHK troops had anticipated the move and deliberately prepared a decisive offensive defensive battle plan. As the terrorists advanced towards the position, the troops launched coordinated spoiling actions that effectively disrupted the assault formation while simultaneously maneuvering to cut off the terrorists' withdrawal routes. The attackers were consequently met with overwhelming resistance and superior firepower, forcing them into a chaotic withdrawal while suffering significant losses. This latest defeat represents the third major blow inflicted on the terrorists within the last 24 hours, following their failed attacks at Banki and Azir Bridge. These successive setbacks further highlight the continued operational pressure being mounted by the troops of Operation Haddon-Kai across the theater, which has severely constrained the terrorists' freedom of action and denied them any opportunity to exploit propaganda narratives. Troops remain firmly in control of all locations and continue to dominate the operational environment with high morale, superior tactical coordination and sustained offensive action. The military high command commended the troops for the continuous gallantry and resilience, urging them to sustain the operational tempo. Peter Obi, in the worded statement titled, "Politics in Front as Insecurity Spreads," said, "Our nation is clearly under siege, and the scale of insecurity is becoming unbearable, spreading widely all over the country." This week alone in Borno State's Ngosh community, terrorists overpowered soldiers, killing them and several citizens, while abducting more than 100 women and children, yet our leaders are silent. The sacrifice of our brave and dedicated soldiers is passed in silence. I look forward to the day when our fallen soldiers are given the dignified burials they deserve, with their bodies received and honored by the nation's leaders and political authorities. From Nasarawa, Kogi and Benue, residents are screaming that terrorists now flock to their farms and forests, disrupting economic activities, forcing entire villages to flee in fear. In Nasarawa's Kadako area alone, 14,318 civilians are now registered as internally displaced persons, IDPs. In Oyo State, travelers were abducted in the dead of night along the Kishi-Igbeti Road, their whereabouts still unknown. In Ondo State, criminals shot at, abducted and wounded innocent citizens. And in Kebbi State, terrorists are on a rampage, killing officers and citizens, making it the third deadly attack this month. The wave of terror has now brazenly crept into our nation's capital. The attack in Kubwa, Abuja, just this week, about 19 citizens were abducted from their homes, including women and children. This is yet another grim reminder that insecurity is no longer distant but now a norm. These are national tragedies happening simultaneously all over our country, claiming the lives of civilians and security operatives alike. The primary responsibility of any government is to secure the lives and property of its citizens. Yet, the response from the government in power to all the incidents has been dead silence, as if Nigerian lives no longer matter. The ruling class are instead devastatingly more preoccupied with how to snatch, grab, and run away with the next election. These are not just news items. Nigerians deserve commitment and leadership that puts their safety and welfare first. It is time to restore security, dignity, and hope to every corner of this nation. A new Nigeria is possible. Punch newspaper during the week also reported that troops of Operation Hadden-Kai have reoccupied a military base, previously attacked and occupied by terrorists in Ngosh, Gwoza local government area of Borno State. Online Punch on March 5 had reported that the terrorists burned down the base, dispersed soldiers, and killed an undetermined number of civilians before abducting over 300 residents. However, in a statement released on Thursday, the Media Information Officer, Northeast Joint Task Force Operation Hadden-Kai, Lieutenant Colonel Sani Uba, said troops thwarted the attack and neutralized many insurgents. The statement, which copy is in possession of Arewa Punch, read in parts: troops of the Nigerian Army under the Joint Task Force Northeast Operation Hadden-Kai have successfully thwarted a terrorist attack on a military location in Ngosh, Gwoza local government area of Borno State, restoring control of the position after a swift counter-offensive. The terrorists had earlier attacked the location occupied by troops of OPHK on the 3rd of March 2026. However, reinforcement teams drawn from Forward Operating Base Pulka and 151 Battalion were immediately mobilized to reinforce the position. The statement added that during the reinforcement operation, the leading mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicle encountered an improvised explosive device, which damaged 2 tires. Undeterred, troops continued the advance to the location, it explained. The Army colonel further disclosed that a special reinforcement team led by the Commander 26 Task Force Brigade, Gwoza, under Sector 1 OPHK, Brigadier General Nasruddin Abdullahi, subsequently arrived at the scene, coordinated a counterattack and successfully thwarted terrorists, forcing them to withdraw from the area. During the pursuit and exchange of fire, Sani said the troops recovered 3 AK-47 rifles and a general-purpose machine gun barrel from the fleeing terrorists. Equally, the air component of OPHK rendered heavy air support to the operation and neutralized scores of the terrorists, he added. Sani stressed that following the successful reoccupation of the location and subsequent exploitation of the area, Brigadier General Abdullahi addressed the troops, commending the gallantry and resilience while urging them to sustain aggressive operations in the area to further degrade terrorist elements operating within the general area. Troops of OPHK remain resolute in the determination to deny terrorists freedom of action and will continue to conduct aggressive operations to ensure lasting peace, security and economic stability across the Northeast, the Army spokesperson added. Troops' morale remains high, and operations are ongoing. The military high command hailed the troops for the gallantry and resilience while urging them to sustain the operational tempo, he pointed out. Punch recently reported that the Media Information Officer, Northeast Joint Task Force Operation Hadden-Kai, Lieutenant Colonel Sani Uba, said troops neutralized several terrorists while responding to multiple coordinated attacks across the state recently. The terrorists, according to him, attacked the military locations in Delwa, Gonari, Kakawa, and Mainik. The attacks, which occurred during the night of Sunday, 8, and Monday, 9, of March 2026, were mounted simultaneously from several directions in an apparent attempt by the terrorists to overwhelm troops' positions. According to him, the gallant troops, undeterred by the intensity of the assaults and the heavy firepower employed by the terrorists, were firm and responded with exceptional determination. Fighting across multiple fronts, the troops effectively coordinated the defensive actions while reinforcements and the air component of Operation Hadden-Kai provided timely and decisive support during the engagements. The terrorists were consequently met with overwhelming resistance and were forced into withdrawal after suffering significant casualties from several terrorist bodies left behind, he disclosed further.
The meeting actually is just for us to review the events. We came in here for the services to brief Mr. President on the current situation on ground. You know that there have been a series of attacks, and the security forces have actually rose to the occasion. We came here to brief him for him to have a better understanding of what's going on. We know sometimes the interpretation, especially through the media, has not been too direct. We feel we should put the record straight, which we have done, and we're glad that Mr. President has continued to support the armed forces and other security agencies in the fight against insurgency. And our appeal to Nigerians is not to get tired, not to be discouraged, because sometimes when you hear those news, you think it is just what is happening, but it is not. It's far from that. The terrorists, the bandits are taking more casualties. Their commanders are being killed. We have lost a number of very, very courageous officers and men. Highly regrettable, but we want to assure Nigerians it's a commitment we are putting on ground to ensure that Nigeria is safe and secured. New things, the President has promised more equipment for us to be able to protect the war, and we are sure of victory.
Just interestingly, you said that Nigerians should not lose hope. About the case of insecurity these days is looking like the more you look, the less you see. A lot of cases of insecurity still happening despite the efforts you're putting in. Where do you think the gap lies?
Well, like I said, it's war, and you know war comes in and out, and because again it's normal it's usual with the terrorists during the Ramadan period. For them, they feel when they die they are going to heaven, so they are ready to commit any offense or to get killed because they feel they have reward to do. But like I said, we have adjusted our strategies. You can see in the past few days we've taken over those locations, we've killed their commanders, we've taken over their assets, we'll continue to do more. And I assure you, Mr. President has approved so many things that are coming on our line, and we're working together as a team. You can see all members of the security forces are here to assure Nigerians and to assure Mr. President that we're on track and will succeed.
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.
The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that the state of Israel has a lot of organized plans of what yet to be done in Iran, specifically saying, regarding what we will do next in Iran, we have an organized plan with many surprises to destabilize the regime and enable change. We have many more targets, and I will not detail them here. Benjamin Netanyahu stated this on Saturday, a day before Mojtaba Khamenei was officially and publicly announced as the Iran's new supreme leader in Tehran's Vanik Square on Sunday, with residents in Middle East reporting with videos that Iran unleashed some numbers of massive waves of Fatori hypersonic glide missiles straight at Israel shortly after the announcement of the Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, many believed to be much more aggressive than his father, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The announcement of the new supreme leader was made known after days. The US President, Donald Trump, stated that the US will have a complete control of Iran and determine its leadership, which in one of the occasions, President Donald Trump stated verbatim that, well, most of the people we had in mind are dead. We had some in mind from that group that is dead. Now we have another group. They may be dead also based on reports. The Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, in a nationwide message to the people of Israel on Saturday as made available by the Office of the Prime Minister, said countries can now see the hypocrisy of the United Nations, UN, following the US-Israel joint war against Iran, saying, the war is changing the face of the Middle East, and in his words, Benjamin Netanyahu said, at the same time, we brought all of our hostages home, struck the centers of terrorism in Judea and Samaria, climbed to the peak of Mount Hermon, and created buffer zones in Syria, Lebanon, and Gaza. As I promised you 2 days after October 7th, we are changing the face of the Middle East, but we didn't just change the Middle East. First and foremost, we changed ourselves, because after the great disaster of October 7th, I decided to lead a polar shift, powerful actions one after another, proactive and surprising actions that dramatically change the balance of power between us and our enemies. The countries around us see the hypocrisy of the UN, which condemned us without reason in our just war against Iran's murderous proxies in Gaza. Yet that same UN did nothing in the face of the mass slaughter in Iran. These countries, which were attacked by Iran, see the weakness and feebleness of leaders in the West who simply abandoned them, while Khamenei and his murderers slaughtered tens of thousands of Iranian citizens. Where was the UN? Where were many countries in the West? And where was the international media that constantly condemns us with fake news? They were nowhere. They simply vanished. Together we rose from the terrible massacre of October 7th. Together we repelled our enemies step by step in the war of redemption. And we struck them hip and thigh. In Gaza, Sinwar and his murderers. In Lebanon, Nasrallah and his terrorists. In Syria, we brought about the fall of the bloody regime. Iran on Sunday officially named and announced Mojtaba Khamenei as the country's new supreme leader following the killing of his father Ayatollah Ali Khamenei in US-Israeli strikes on February 28. The state-run media announced early Monday, according to Iran local time that aligns with the Iran Standard Time, IRST, which was still on Sunday in accordance with the Greenwich Mean Time, GMT. According to CNN, Mojtaba Khamenei was selected by Iran's Assembly of Experts, an 88-member body of elected senior clerics tasked with choosing the supreme leader. The Assembly has chosen a new leader only once, before since the Islamic Republic was established in 1979. It was when Ali Khamenei was hastily selected following the death of Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini more than 3 decades ago. US President Donald Trump said Thursday he must be involved in the appointment of Iran's next leader and that the choice of Khamenei's son was unacceptable to him. Mojtaba, 56, is Khamenei's second son and is known to wield significant influence behind the scenes and has strong links with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, the most powerful military body in the country, as well as its Bassi volunteer paramilitary force. That aside, details of the statement made by the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu in the nationwide address reads verbatim as follows: "My brothers and sisters, citizens of Israel. We are in a fateful campaign for our very existence. A week has passed since the start of Operation Roaring Lion and I want to salute our heroic pilots, the ground crews that are working around the clock, and our courageous fighters in Lebanon and on all fronts. I wish to express my deepest appreciation to you, the citizens of Israel, for your steadfastness, for the way you are conducting yourselves in this emergency, understanding the gravity of the hour and following home front command instructions which truly save lives. In the secure rooms and protected spaces, you are demonstrating a powerful spirit. You tell me, the government, and our heroic soldiers and commanders, continue until the end, until victory. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your backing. And I inform you, we are continuing with full force. Wars are won with initiative and stratagems, but the first foundation of success is determination. I am not just talking about the determination of leaders, I am talking about the determination of the people. I am talking about the determination that you, the citizens of Israel, have shown until today and the determination that will yet be required of us together. Together we rose from the terrible massacre of October 7th. Together we repelled our enemies step by step in the war of redemption, and we struck them hip and thigh. In Gaza, Sinwar and his murderers. In Lebanon, Nasrallah and his terrorists. In Syria, we brought about the fall of the bloody regime. And in Iran we struck the murderous regime of the Ayatollahs in Operation Rising Lion, and now, we are doing so with even greater vigor in Operation Roaring Lion. At the same time, we brought all of our hostages home, struck the centers of terrorism in Judea and Samaria, climbed to the peak of Mount Hermon, and created buffer zones in Syria, Lebanon, and Gaza. As I promised you 2 days after October 7th, we are changing the face of the Middle East. But we didn't just change the Middle East. First and foremost, we changed ourselves. Because after the great disaster of October 7th, I decided to lead a polar shift. Powerful actions one after another, proactive and surprising actions, actions that dramatically change the balance of power between us and our enemies. Through these methods, we turned Israel into a regional power that deters and defeats its enemies. All of this requires initiative, daring, and risk-taking. In the General Staff Reconnaissance Unit in which I served as a fighter and commander, a large poster hung in the dining hall with 2 words, only 2 words, "Who dares wins." If you do not dare, if you are constantly afraid of failure, you will lose. But if you do dare, if you take calculated risks, knocking the enemy off balance, you break his spirit. Now I will describe to you why we embarked on Operation Roaring Lion, what we have done so far, and what we will do as the campaign continues. Standing before us is an extremist, evil regime that for 47 years has called for death to Israel, death to America, and which plots to destroy us with atomic bombs and tens of thousands of ballistic missiles. President Trump understood the magnitude of the danger to the US and the entire world long ago. I will tell you that when I met him in Florida, a few months before he was elected to his 2nd term, the first thing he said to me was, "Bibi, we must at all costs prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons." I would like to thank my friend, President Trump, for the historic leadership he is demonstrating, for the brave friendship between us, and for the alliance, which is stronger than ever, between the US and Israel that we are both leading. In Operation Rising Lion, we joined forces to remove the immediate danger from Israel and the US. But the tyrant from Tehran, Khamenei, did not heed President Trump's warnings, nor did he heed mine. He ordered the restoration of Iran's nuclear and ballistic capabilities, and even buried them deep, deep underground, beneath high mountains, so that they would be completely immune to any strike. There is no doubt that after achieving this underground immunity, the Ayatollah's regime would have used these terrible tools to destroy us, Israel, and threaten the US, Europe, the countries of the region, and the entire world with nuclear weapons. After all, this is exactly what this terrorist regime is doing now, even without weapons of mass destruction. Imagine what it would do if it had nuclear weapons. Based on this foresight, we set out together, the US and Israel, on an action that would thwart these terrible threats, an action that would create the conditions to allow the Iranian people to take their destiny into their own hands. There was an additional danger here. There was the danger that Iran would preempt us, that Iran would strike first at American targets in the region as well as at Israel. For all these reasons, we acted at the appointed time. As for what we have done so far, in the first week of the war, we eliminated the tyrant Khamenei, neutralized dozens of senior Revolutionary Guard officials and hundreds of terrorist operatives, destroyed government facilities, nuclear infrastructure, headquarters and military bases, weapon factories, missile and drone warehouses, and hundreds of ballistic missile launchers, which reduces the threat to the state of Israel. Through our daring pilots and those of the US, we achieved almost total control of Iranian skies. With each passing day, we are peeling away more and more of the Iranian regime's capabilities. We are doing the same in Lebanon, with crushing attacks on Hezbollah terrorists, Iran's puppets. I say again to the Lebanese government, it is your responsibility to enforce the ceasefire agreement and it is your responsibility to disarm Hezbollah. If you do not do so, Hezbollah's aggression will bring catastrophic consequences upon Lebanon. It is time for you, too, to take your destiny into your hands. We will, in any case, do everything necessary to protect our communities and our citizens. Regarding what we will do next in Iran, we have an organized plan with many surprises to destabilize the regime and enable change. We have many more targets, and I will not detail them here. But to the Revolutionary Guard operatives, those who tyrannize the Iranian people in the streets, I say only this. You, too, are in the crosshairs. Whoever lays down his weapon, no harm will come to him. He who does not will pay the price. And to the Iranian people I say, I have been speaking to you and for you for decades. The moment of truth is approaching, for we do not seek to divide Iran. We seek to liberate Iran and live in peace with it. But at the end of the day, liberation from the yoke of tyranny, this liberation will depend on you, the brave and long-suffering Iranian people. I believe that if you stand up at the moment of truth, the day will not be far off when Israel and Iran return to being brave friends. Whoever sees the joint waving of flags in Western capitals, the Iranian, Lion and Sun, flag and the Israeli, Star of David, flag, whoever sees the dancing and warm embraces between exiled Iranians and Jews, whoever sees all this is deeply moved. This gives immense hope for the future. Our success will bring not only the removal of a nuclear threat from the entire world, and not only peace between Israel and Iran. It will also bring a dramatic expansion of the circle of peace around us. Today everyone understands that the Ayatollah's regime endangers the entire world. In recent days, Iran has attacked 12 countries around it. We stand by them. All these countries see the immense power of Israel, our willingness to fight the tyrants in Tehran, the heroism of the army and the heroism of the people, and our vast military and technological capabilities. Many countries are turning to us now for cooperation. And why are they doing so? Why are they turning to us specifically now? Because we are strong, because we are right, because we are fighting. The countries around us see the hypocrisy of the UN, which condemned us without reason in our just war against Iran's murderous proxies in Gaza, yet that same UN did nothing in the face of the mass slaughter in Iran. These countries, which were attacked by Iran, see the weakness and feebleness of leaders in the West who simply abandoned them. While Khamenei and his murderers slaughtered tens of thousands of Iranian citizens, where was the UN? Where were many countries in the West? And where was the international media that constantly condemns us with fake news? They were nowhere. They simply vanished. Many countries see today exactly who can be trusted. Israel serves as a beacon of strength and hope. Thanks to this strength, we will be able to expand the circle of security, peace, and prosperity in the future on a scale we have never known. Citizens of Israel, at this moment we are still in the midst of a difficult campaign. We will not cease to struggle against the tyrants in Iran. We will strike them without mercy. Operation Roaring Lion will continue with uncompromising momentum. Together we will continue to stand firm. Together we will roar like a lion, and with God's help, together we will ensure the eternity of Israel.
Osazuwakan Radio, bringing you the news in a more digital way. Osazuwakan Radio, bringing you the news in a more digital way.